Damn, what is up, my internet friends? Welcome to Walking and Talking, the show where I walk and talk. I'm a little out of sorts from not walking and talking enough. That is, like, this is where I can most effectively enter and remain in the void and go through the void, reflux till I efflux, if you know what I'm saying. But then I've gotten caught in kind of a vicious cycle of not feeling cognitively and emotionally and physiologically balanced enough to do the thing, and then so, you know, I wait. I'm like, I'll be functioning better on another day, but then still the absence of completing the video, it's like, leaves me still with kind of some kind of lack that I'm then like gravitationally pulled towards, you know, the dopaminergic carrot on the stick, so to speak. That is, how am I gonna not eat that leftover chocolate cake that's sitting there when I you know, when I start to feel the neurotransmitter void descend on me. You know, then I get like overwhelmed by the reverse black hole. And as you may notice, there's what we could consider some amount of mental fog going on here. Hence, maybe some creative license with the way that I'm describing things. But if you'll grant me some metaphorical slack in the way that we talk here, or even better yet, approach it with a generous mindset, or appreciative even, of the connections that could be, you know, happy accidents of cognitive muck that we may find ourselves in for a little while, but we'll also try and appreciate the digging ourselves out of the shit for its own rewards, for its own merit, like the actual, like, come to appreciate the digging in its own right, the shoveling, or the slogging. Like, put on your waders, or better yet, take them off, and feel that cold sludge against your shins. When I was talking about the reverse black hole, like, you know, the gravitational pull of pleasure, you know, of, you know, there was, I went to a very pleasant wedding, COVID wedding, you know, pleasant for me because it was so small and inostentatious. I think a normal wedding would have made me feel uncomfortable. But, you know, there's leftovers from, you know, that's justification for pleasure and celebration, and then there's leftover cake from that, and so, you know, you get into this vicious cycle of down-regulating your neurotransmitters. You know what I'm talking about. But the gravitational pull is like a pull towards expression in what feels like physical manifestation. I'm not describing this totally clearly yet, but let me get at it. Like physical pleasure, you know, just sensual pleasure of biting into that chocolate and chewing and swallowing it. What's the deal with that? Even though I know the whole time that this you know, has some kind of temporary down regulating effect on my dopamine transmitters, and then as well as the stimulating properties of the caffeine and the chocolate that have I know have a destabilizing effect on my nervous system. You know, I'll be like kind of jittery after eating heavy chocolate, and then like hungover the next day. Does anybody else get that? I feel like I just get increasingly sensitive to what goes into my body, to the point where like any chocolate at all, actually, like any amount of caffeine at all, just like stratifies out my experience in extreme ways of like, and then but that pleasure experience, that's like, that to me has something to do with like manifesting out of the void, like effluxing away from the more like effluxing out of sort of an unstable floating in relative unity. Like an affirmation of physical individuation. A reconciliation of individuation. Like why should it be so like painful or boring or mundane to be manifested in a body? Can't we spice things up a little bit? Can't we have a little fun? Give me that fucking chocolate. Yeah! Like we could think of it as a little reminder of what efflux is, of what individuation is all about. But it just, but then it just sucks because you always have to pay it all back. Experientially, it certainly seems like if I consume a significant amount of caffeine to give me a boost in mood and to assist me in viewing reality in an optimistic light, even if I experience that, it seems like I'm automatically then placed into a kind of debt where I'll have to, you know, continue that. I'll have to then maintain that caffeine intake just to now maintain relative neutrality, or I'll have to come off the caffeine and experience an equally compelling void of meaning and depressive, pessimistic view on reality that's interlinked with like low cognitive function, like brain fog, not being able to think clearly, not being able to like have any kind of integrated, comprehensive, positive, optimistic view of life and reality and everything, and then just like kind of go through that little hell for however long to get back to a kind of neutrality that is not dependent on the caffeine intake. And then, of course, I'm aware that having gotten back to even, then I have this potential to use caffeine again and like immediately feel and immediately be assisted in at least temporarily having this boost, and this at least what feels like a boost in the capacity for like integral creative thinking and learning and growth or something, you know, for a time. And then so then it's kind of alluring. But I guess all in all, it's like okay. Like what I'm describing might sound hellish, but it evens out. And I had been thinking that when I walked and talked today that I would really have to. I was anticipating real suffering, that I would I was anticipating like having to slog through more brain fog than I maybe actually am at this moment, and anticipating that the possibility of that to lead towards a negative cycle, towards, you know, negative self-evaluation and self-consciousness, which in turn like create a certain like emotional like reactivity that once again is like taking energy away from my ability to think well and so on, and so far that hasn't happened. But I thought I would have to like do that as a form of burning through the karma of experiencing pleasure in life. A lot of, I guess, sensual pleasure, but I guess now that I think about it, a lot of that sensual pleasure hasn't been exactly what I would think of as the addictive kind of pleasure. As in, what I'm talking about, there's been some of that, like, celebratory indulging of things. But also just a lot of seeing incredible nature, places that I've never been to, expansive vistas and alien-looking landscapes and fecund, diverse ecosystems and geological formations and just rich, very rich sensory experience, totally integrated with like the mystery and wonder of how it's all created without human intervention for the most part. And in the case of some of these geological formations that are mind-blowingly beautiful, it's like all the more mind-blowing in that it's not something created by anything we would typically consider as animate. If we try to classify how those crystals are created and whatnot, it's all physical processes that are totally outside of the realm of biology. But I could go on talking about petrified wood and stuff, because then you've got this integration of the biological and geological and physical stuff. But let's not get too far off the track here. Let me remove a layer. This experience is not nearly as scary as I was anticipating. Maybe I'll even remove 2 layers. It's not as cold as I thought it'd be. I thought this would be one of those cold, bleak, just like straight up metabolizing emptiness in the most harsh possible way kind of days. But so far, I don't really have anything to complain about. I mean, not that I would complain about that anyways. Or at least I hope I wouldn't. In fact, I feel quite grateful that I am doing this now. As part of what I'm, considering a recalibrating process, which I I realize I feel like I'm doing that all the time. I'm like telling you, like, I'm apologizing for this, for the quality of this walking and talking, but I'm recalibrating because I've gotten too sloppy in my living. And gotten lazy with the degree, gotten lazy about maintaining a high kind of potential in my, like, cognitive, spiritual, creative capacities. Or another way to say that would be that I've been lazy about attending the void. That I've let gravity get the better of me. But it's all right. I'm sure you can relate. Who hasn't let gravity get the better of them before? Who else is trying to escape the reach the critical escape velocity? Where it's like you can't do it by willpower alone. But instead, maybe an analogy would be like trying to get off the surface of Jupiter. But I mean, I don't know if Jupiter has a really solid surface, but let's just say, get off the surface of a planet that is crushing you by getting into a black hole. But I'm saying the black hole is good. Let's abandon this metaphor. We could use it, but maybe there's something better. Maybe it's like instead of trying to jump off of the surface, you dig a hole and allow yourself to fall towards gravity. That's not it exactly either. I do feel like I'm starting to be floating a little bit in terms of like fear is going away. Fear of the experience of walking and talking. Because now that I look back on it, I was afraid of it. I was afraid of doing it. Because I was afraid of walking and talking for all the weakness that it might reveal in me. Sorry, I thought for a second that might have been a chaga mushroom, but it's not the right kind of tree. I think it's just like a thing. A growth on the tree. But it looks not totally dissimilar superficially to what a chaga mushroom might look like. But then, you know, and then you do the thing that's been nagging on you, that you've been afraid to do, but you know you need to do. And then once you're doing it, it's like, this is not so bad. The fear of it was much worse. Huh. That makes me wonder what else I could apply that to in my life. Are there these things? There's things I'm not sure about. But let's forget about that. I can think about that later. I've been going on for a while in what I perceive to be not particularly self-conscious mode of speaking and thinking, reflecting, if you will. And then there was one of those gaps where it's like, it seems like a end of a paragraph or a thought kind of came to a relative conclusion, and then the gap presents itself as an open space. What's gonna come out next? And I briefly glimpsed the potential to agonize over what to say next, and some possibility flashed through my mind, thinking about a more painfully self-conscious mode of examining my own thoughts. But then I quickly kind of realized that wasn't necessary, because then I thought about the possibility occurred to me of a more acute kind of awareness of my thought process and thinking and speaking to you that wasn't necessarily at all like painful or embarrassing. And some of that is, I think that's occurring a little bit. But what I mean by that is like like drifting a little bit more into the type of awareness where it feels a little bit more like I'm observing my speech more so than being the agent of my speech. But interestingly enough, that's not actually entirely true, in that the more, it's like I'm simultaneously becoming more aware of the kind of like phenomenal experience of the agency of speaking, as well as what feels like a slightly more removed observation of the speaking. So if I let me clarify a little bit. When I think back to the 28 or whatever minutes leading up towards my beginning to articulate the nature of my awareness of speaking and relationship to the phenomena of speaking, I can conceive of that prior experience as having as being like a relatively less aware state, or a more, I can conceive of it as being a more like coarse awareness of speaking and of conception of self, and how and the way speaking is articulating that, and it being like relatively unaware of the actual phenomenon of agency as related to speaking. And also relatively just like also just a more coarse-grained aware, like, observation of the speaking also. But simultaneously it being like totally contiguous with this, with what I'm, the way that I'm experiencing and speaking about experiencing now seems to be like spiraling in on itself, if you will. And I guess I'm happy to report that it's like an increasing, that I'm also experiencing an increasing sensitivity to my physiological state in a way that's not uncomfortable or excruciating or anything, and in a way that doesn't have so much to do with experiencing my physical state as discrete emotions, so much as it has to do with experiencing it as just kind of like change and process, and as like interchange between like the would-be self and other. And when I say that, it also starts to give me, well, that kind of triggers me thinking about sensation at large being interchange. as being more of a continuity than evidence of the border. Hello. And of course, that's something I've thought about and talked about a lot in walking and talking, so it comes as no surprise that I would think about that. But then, you know, the thinking of it also you know, it seems to trigger that experience, which all, of course, like brings up the question to me of to what extent am I just kind of like imposing different conceptual frameworks over actual experience, or to what extent is different mental frameworks, you know, substantially altering experience, like real experience, or this other option of like, is there already a baseline real experience to which my conceptual maps of reality, my frameworks are you know, continually running up against and testing and like overall like getting closer towards reality. I guess those are three different possible ways of looking at it. I want to look at this. Here, I'll just give this. Let me get a good gander of this mushroom. Let's just get a decent image of this mushroom on the screen for future reference, because I don't know what it is. You know, I tried walking and talking in just some spectacularly beautiful places, and it didn't work out for one reason or another, which was very disappointing. But it was, yeah, I don't know. It was as if I lost to the landscape. The landscape overwhelmed me, or hey, lobster. There's some lobster mushrooms, I think. One of those experiences where I'd deemed something about it not right. And which is a little mysterious, because I can't really point to any quality of, I can't really point to anything about this experience that seems like a corrective of whatever was wrong before. for whatever reason that I couldn't complete the other walking and talkings. Like why I was feeling shitty, and the walking and talking seemed to fail to not make me feel shitty in the past, but today it's like there's just like not really a question about feeling shitty, or the feeling good or bad isn't a dominating factor here. I suppose my emotions are just regulated enough to allow me to keep going for now. But and also if I had to describe my orientation, my general orientation at the moment, I guess maybe I would describe it as positive. Like I don't feel any fear about the future of this episode, other than there's a possible fear that this battery pack is not gonna function correctly, and the camera's gonna run out of battery. Let me fiddle with this for a moment. Let me just give you some handling noise, and it'll draw your attention out of the simulacrum in a way, because you'll become aware of the camera and the screen and the speakers once again as a mediating factor. And maybe that'll even point you towards a different type of relation with me, with the screen, where your experience is not totally dominated by the total like simulation of me on the other side of the screen, but also it's like that's one facet of this experience that you can enter. You can be kind of like immersed in this representation of me walking here and forget that it is a technologically mediated simulation that is occurring within your own real physical space and within your own perceptual space and cognitive space, and etc., etc. So yeah, let's go ahead and lean into handling noise, because I want the little indicator light to tell me that it's being powered by the external battery pack, but it doesn't want to. A cause for concern, but hopefully it seems like a concern that is circumscribed enough to practicality to not not totally like bleed into the rest of my perception of reality. You know what I'm saying? That I won't confuse that kind of that problem with more existential problems. Or to put that better, that that's not gonna feed into any vicious cycle, let's say. Although, like, there's a real way in which, like, the battery running out and the video ending prematurely does present a problem for my present experience, insofar as our connection is an important integral aspect of this experience, and which it is. But yeah, I can't really worry about it, you know. It'll work or it won't. But actually, you know, I don't even have to talk about that, because, you know, you're watching this. Obviously, it worked enough for me to post it. Cool. I'm glad that worked out. But yeah, it doesn't mean I'm not gonna keep fiddling. Yeah, I fiddled with it and then the camera stopped. But that's neither here nor there. Now I'm in this moment. There was like a brief moment where, like, where I glimpsed this possibility of, like, of getting upset, or of entering a vicious cycle of frustration, where, like, in which a whole set of perceptions would have to operate together. One, the perception of this video, like, going well, of being a good one, and the perception of, like, and then like the threat of, or frustration with the technology that I'm using being finicky, like, intruding on that, and then to like be limited to viewing that as an intrusion. And then probably what would have to happen in order for me to, like, enter this vicious cycle would be, like, to then get upset at myself, get frustrated and disappointed with myself for perceiving that as a negative or as a problem, and then and then getting up, like further getting upset with myself for getting upset, and then like, you know, that just cycle, that like would just cycle into like a you know, a cycle of like self-loathing. But now I'm finding it kind of funny actually to describe that process in like in my imagination, rather than reality. What the hell is that? Is it barfed? Is it a smashed pumpkin? Is it a rotted mushroom? Is it an animal that ate a pumpkin and then diarrheaed it out? So, yeah, like I wanted to describe a moment in which but like none of those perceptions that could theoretically lead towards that cycle really materialized. But they like materialized in the like abstractly as possibilities, but not as realities. And like, yeah, I think, I mean, and I guess I'm thinking that like it's like the perception of this video like going well, like the mainly like the solidified concept of it going well, like would be maybe the dangerous or the tricky one, the one that like the calcified thought object that would slip in without too much scrutiny. But then with that calcification, you know, other types of calcifications would like crystallize around it in the way that like crystals would form in a liquid around a nucleus. But none of that happened. But instead, just like a continual examination of these possibilities that didn't really actualize, which is, it's interesting to me now in that like I can now kind of perceive. There's a cool car. What is that? That truck with a crazy like small cap over the bed. It's interesting to me because like now it feels like the phenomena that I'm talking about now is one that's like it's like a meta-analysis of something that didn't really happen, or something that clearly like doesn't have a substantial existence, just a what's the word? Just like a potential existence. So what I'm saying is that it feels interesting that what I'm talking about now, it really feels like it's just like a meta phenomenon of emptiness, or an emergent phenomena of emptiness, or I could say some like a form built out of emptiness. Like if you, so for instance, if you're thinking about what I'm saying right now, and like if you're thinking hard about it and analyzing it and trying to dissect what exactly I'm talking about, and trying to like follow all the reference back in your memory and things, like what are all the thought phenomena that he's like even referencing in what he's talking about now. Even if you are actually successful in maintaining that amount of working memory to follow all of the strands of what I'm talking about now, like back to whatever their origin might have been, you will just come into basically nothing of substance. And yet at the same time you can understand what I'm saying. You understand the words. So it's like it seems like there's paradoxically both meaning and not occurring. And I feel happy that I feel happy about that. Like, well, I was gonna say I feel happy about that, and then I was like, what do I feel happy about? And I guess it's that I feel happy about feeling happy about it. And so you could say that you, and I'm willing to guess that you feel more happy that I'm feeling happy about this experience than you would feel unhappy or upset or pissed off or annoyed. I'm guessing that, and it could be said that both you and I are involved in a virtuous cycle here. That, but weirdly enough, I can't really point to any originating causality of that, you know? Of being involved in a virtuous cycle rather than a vicious one. But, I mean, it does seem true that there's kind of like an evolutionary logic to the virtuous cycle. Being able just to persist over time as opposed to the vicious cycle, because what's vicious about a vicious cycle is that it's like its telos is like self-annihilation, like the, and I'm not necessarily talking about like self-annihilation of the person, although that does happen, but I just mean that like the vicious cycles in general, it kind of seems as if they by definition have a terminus. You know what I'm saying? That they're like by definition not sustainable. So in the context of this video, if I were really involved in a vicious cycle, it would probably just result in me like either stopping the video or not posting it. And so like henceforth there's just kind of like a self-evident it's kind of like, now it strikes me as kind of like self-explanatory why this video, and henceforth you and I involved in this mutual experience of this video, that we're involved in a virtuous cycle, or that this could be considered as such. And like as I say that, like I feel even more kind of grounded and affirmed in reality, by virtue of the evolutionary predominance of that cycle. Hello. Like feeling that in a way it has its own form of gravity. And it kind of it makes me think of the whole process of being at all as being like water moving downhill towards its telos, but the telos not being a final resting spot, but being just the continuation of the process itself. And all the pain and suffering and alienation and like painful experience of separation or experience of like being stuck in some vicious cycle with the terminus, all of that being included in this process, and in a way that at this moment feels reconciled. Like taking for example how in this video we experienced like this understanding of the potentiality of a vicious cycle with a, you know, with a self-annihilating terminus to it. We had an understanding of that, but with a remove from its actuality, or I should say, like, to the extent that we can understand the vicious cycle, and or like put you know, you can make that interchangeable with like suffering, or like an unsustainable state, or whatever, that we can understand any of that, like, points to the fact that we've all experienced that. You know, like undeniable, like that the abstract notion of it is here present in this reality, like kind of like if we're going to, you know, continue thinking kind of linearly and narratively, then it's fair to say, I think, that we've all experienced something like that. But at the same time, we can look now at this experience that we're having and recognize that it's not that. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I mean, unless unless you and I are actually just involved in a vicious cycle that's like so large that we can't see it, and that like maybe this like process that we're doing is actually like some kind of like addictive behavior that just happens to like feel really good right now. But like, now that I think about that, it also feels like that, like that's a matter of framing, and that also it would be, you know, a bit of a stretch of framing of things to analyze it in that way. And also, I guess that would probably also amount. That'd probably amount, like to frame it in that way would actually probably amount to a substantiation of the vicious cycle. You know what I'm saying? Like, it would to frame one's experience in that pessimistic kind of terms would you know, be one would be like a crucial component of a vicious cycle, because then, you know, you would become emotionally reactive in a negative way, and so on and so forth. But I think we can kind of drop that thought for the time being. I think it's thoroughly debunked enough. Yeah, now I'm trying to like extend my memory back a little bit to try and pick up on one of the trains of thought that we've been on. But yeah, I mean, I walked off the path and then this different environment. Put a slight interruption into things. Please excuse me for a moment while I guess I'm gonna expel some fluids for a moment. I feel as if I could go on talking for a long time about this affirming kind of experience of reality. And just like I want to just try and explain it over and over again in slightly different ways each time, and maybe kind of continue to like investigate the truth of it, and see if it becomes falsified or debased. And so let me try and just think of like an overly simplified way to say it, which might be something like it is good that we exist. Like I was thinking for a moment, and it kind of it boiled down a little bit to that. Or like just another phrasing of that was something that I saw on a church sign once that said, "It is good for us to be here." Or another way of saying that is that like our existence in this moment and goodness are the same. And in my formula, I guess like in the way that I'm seeing things at the moment, which I don't know if I've thought about things exactly in this way before, but it's kind of occurring to me that like the converse of that, like what it seems to kind of imply, I think maybe it's something along the lines of like badness or evil or suffering, having a temporal limitation. but goodness not having that. Is this am I cheating? Am I like committing a grand falsehood by saying these types of things? I would be more suspicious of myself if like I felt like my kind of emotional tone of expression were like ecstatic or manic. But you know, maybe I'm just like a really cool maybe I'm just a cool I don't know what would be the psychopathology associated with having external expressive like coolness or flatness, but while actually moving through a grossly polarized perspective on reality. I don't know. I'm not sure if there's a definition for that. But I guess whatever it, maybe I have it. But regardless, let's investigate this idea of like suffering being limited to temporality, but goodness not. It's pretty interesting, because I can say experientially that when I'm suffering, I feel very limited and beholden to temporality. I feel constricted by temporality. I feel like temporality is oppressing me. Just and it's like you can kind of like extrapolate this to the problem of mortality. That mortality is kind of the fundamental problem of temporality, that by dint of us passing through time, we're always moving towards death. Or you could point it as like we're always dying. Like me, like oh man, how have I, you know, how embarrassing that I've let myself age this much. How could this happen? How could this happen? That I'm all the time moving towards death. Damn it. Darn it. That just seems to ruin everything, doesn't it? Shucks. Darn it. But then, you know, like you have all kinds of versions of that, like all kinds of mini versions. Like, it's almost like it's kind of like suffering. It is like kind of like the instantiation of linear temporality. So let's, you know, it's like what's a mini version of suffering? Like having to pee really bad and not being able to, and so You know, that's like a version of temporality, like instantiating itself painfully into existence. Having a headache or whatever. I mean, I guess the other very like totally reasonable way to think about it is that the suffering, like, you know, makes you more aware of time passing. You know, like that joke that you know, researchers found that happy people live longer lives, but then on the other half, but on the other hand, unhappy people's lives feel longer. Like I'm trying to see if this correlation or this linkage is something real. Like all kind of like the painful insecurities and whatnot, negative self-evaluations, like what, like why is aging like this enemy? Why is youth seem to be so desirable? I mean, I guess we could make this argument that, like, evolutionarily, it's like we want youth either in the version of ourselves or who we fuck, or our babies, as you know, a drive towards continuation of life. I guess that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, that seems like true on a certain level. But it's also like, I'm trying to make sure that I'm not just like trying to like rationalize my way out of insecurity about, you know, I'm trying to make sure that I'm not just like leaving blind spots here because I'm trying to explain away my own insecurities. But I also want to stay. I want to stay honed in on investigating for the moment this question of, you know, the relationship between the linear experience of time and badness. maybe maybe I am kind of thinking about all this in a limited kind of way. Because first of all, I think we need to backtrack here and like maybe make some kind of distinction between evil and badness and suffering, like and pain as well. Like, what the hell are we talking about? Because they're not necessarily the same thing. But I do think that I can say, like, with some confidence that that the dissolution of the linear experience of time is like pretty much correlated with the dissolution of the experience of suffering. And at the moment I'm also like questioning what the heck is my conception of badness or evil to begin with, because that seems to be vanishing as I try to get a grasp on what that is. And so I started this whole segment of the rant by saying, like, this kind of like simplified thing that I had been led up to, that it is good that we are here, or that like it's like our existence and goodness are synonymous. It's good for us to be here. Like in a really in a fundamental way that encapsulates and reconciles and holds all of the pain and suffering within it. And just like be a little bit patient with me at the moment, because I feel as if my train of thought has veered a little bit, has become like slightly separated from the other aspects of my experience. And in that way, like, starts to like lose the feeling of truth. And I guess I kind of noticed that in noticing noticing that I hadn't been noticing my physiological state as sensitively, because I noticed that like my brow was furrowed and I was holding some tension, and I wasn't aware of that, and those tensions we could think of them we could think of them as kind of like blocking phenomena between self and other, and then in that way kind of creating the self-other dichotomy, and also like actively creating the sense of the feeling of linear time, of you know, like how I was talking about having to pee as being like this undeniably experienced manifestation of the linearity of time. It's like all sort of physiological disequilibriums can be considered that, I think. So I know we're wandering a bit here. We're maybe wandering a bit around this kind of nucleus of it's good that we're here. And so I want to make sure that when I say something like that, that I'm in as much as possible experiencing it as truth, and not as an object of thought that has a remove from my experience. So I guess I'm just trying to be transparent about about the varying relationship that I'm having with the experience of talking. Seems important for that. You know what I mean? And so it's interesting when I kind of notice my speaking as being a component of this of some kind of conceptual process that I in moments feel disidentified with, like, or as I like start to see that conceptual process occurring apparently without me, or as not me, or what I happen to be the perspective that I happen to be identified with at the given moment. But then paradoxically enough, that like that continual process of disidentifying with a thought process that's taking place seems to lead towards identification with a progressively more expansive perspective. And now I feel very aware that of this kind of like experience of convolution, of like any supposed like explanatory utility that we might have been on track of is kind of like getting like blown up into you know, zooming in on all the various facets of this experience in a way that could feel kind of like overwhelmingly endless, or that could be interpreted as frustrating, in that like we want to arrive at something. And but I am kind of like keeping in my head as some kind of nucleus of what we're doing here, this phrase, I guess. What was the original way that I said it? I mean, like to the effect of that there is this experience, like, is a fundamental good. But as I started to formulate, formulate that summation of what we're talking about in my mind just now, I did experience a flash of something that kind of like destroys the necessity of even that phrase, or even that conception of things. Like just, yeah, to try and clarify, like we can just look at the notion of like, okay, that we are here, or that we exist right here, or that there is experience or something, saying that there is something, and look at that. Because, I mean, on one hand, it seems like so self-evident and incontrovertibly true that there is something, that something exists. And I'm not necessarily talking about like the apparent solidity of things, of the apparent superficial concreteness of things, of like self and world, because that's not really the top level of what I'm talking about as there being something. Like when I talk about being, I'm talking about something more fundamental than like there's than like the like apparent concrete things like your computer. Because, you know, of course we can we can deconstruct those objects, you know. I think you probably know what I mean. Like you could physically deconstruct them into their components and therefore like realize their inherent, like that they don't have an inherent existence in themselves, that it's all kind of like the object of computer is like inherent on interrelationship of its parts, and its parts are all that don't have fundamental existence other than the inherent relationship between their component parts, and so on and so on, as well as the existence of your computer being completely reliant on our human perceptual and conceptual processes that, you know, perceive it as an object and relate to it as such. But let me stop that, because I feel like that's a little bit more conceptual than I can presently like experientially attest to, and so I'm trying in as far as possible to keep everything that I'm saying experientially grounded in this moment. But yeah, we got off on talking about, on kind of examining the notion like that there is something, and it's kind of hard for me to articulate, but it's kind of like if I kind of like try and assert that, its opposite kind of starts to reveal itself the more that I try to assert it. So for instance, like, you know, just like try this experiment of like there's definitely of like thinking to yourself, there's definitely something like I am definitely substantial. I'm here. I'm a body. I have a body. I have a mind. There's an I for sure. There's the world for sure. Here's me. I'm experiencing the world. And so obviously there's something. You know, I can sense that there's sensory experience. And for me, as I like kind of experimentally like make those assertions, I can't help but observe them when I make them, and then it's like something of their emptiness becomes apparent. Something of the opposite becomes more apparent, and but even if we, you know, even if we do kind of transcend the self-other dichotomy, and I guess this is a good time to turn around. We're getting closer to the road. Even if we do transcend the self-other dichotomy, and you know, we're unproblematically experiencing like that the unity of self-other, we might still be tempted to make the assertion there is something, like insofar as there is experience, like there's like even if there's sensation, that's something, you know, even if I realize like there's not inherently a self separate than the other, and I feel like I'm experiencing the dissolution of that dichotomy, there's still that I am experiencing at all. There still seems to be sensation, you know. There's, even if there's that unity, like that unity is something, right? But still, when I in my experience, when I make that kind of assertion about reality, and I like look at that, like a similar thing happens where the opposite of that, or the emptiness of that, becomes also apparent. And like I don't want this just to be a purely conceptual thought experiment, you know, where you like just like break this all down in conceptual terms. Although, like, I know that the I realize that what we are actively doing is like, you know, processually, like, fragmenting reality in various ways with our thinking and our conceptualizing. But I'm hoping, and I think I am experiencing that as being, you know, integrated with the broader realm of experience. Like I can't totally separate my conceptualizing at this point from other things like my perception. I can't quite separate concept from percept totally at the moment. So, like, or I could say that like body and mind are not separate in the moment, in the sense that like, you know, we can look at the mind as being dependent on body in that you know, our ability to think at all is dependent on the biological processes of our bodies, and obviously it's very influenced by that, the physiological basis of our mood always coloring our reality and such. And at the same time, the converse is equally true, in that, like, and that the mind creates the body insofar as like it is active. There are active mental processes that continually, like, maintain the concept of the body and the self in opposition to the other, in opposition to the world. And like it is possible to experience the dissolution of that in a way that is as real as anything. So it's kind of like there's that paradoxical interdependency in which, like, each of those truths would seem on the surface to negate the other. So as we go along here, and I keep, like, there's these moments where I kind of judge the way that I'm speaking as being, like, over intellectual or something. I think what that means is that, like, Like maybe what that means is that like I'm identification becoming enveloped in the conceptualizing process as fragmented off from something like my perceptual experiential entirety, and then so I'd, you know, maybe I finish a thought, and then so I like shift my awareness back to my physical sensations or something, or to a more like kind of broad awareness of my sensory input. And so that's one way of saying it, but another way of saying it is that reality itself is continually shifting between being the concept and being the more embodied, so to speak, reality, and but like, you know, being also exhilarated by the interchange between the two, and exhilarated by observing the continuous like affecting the, you know, feedback between them. And so that there's an inherent kind of question there of like, is there a reality outside of your experience? And so one you know, true way of answering that is that yes, and then another true way of answering that is that no, your experience is reality. But don't take that in the kind of like naive solipsistic sense. It's interesting, each time I stop talking, it's like when I'm stopping talking and I'm like temporarily outside of thought. It's like the thought is appearing to me now then as memory, in a way that I'm not identified with that memory entirely, and then like for instance, there was like a little pause back there where another way to describe that experience was that I felt for a moment like when I stopped, I felt surprised at some of the things that I observed myself saying, because they just seemed like kind of new in like new appearances in what would be my self-conception. And as such, kind of announcing a contiguity between the self-conception and the kind of like unfolding creative nature of reality at large, which is kind of to say, like, in as much as I felt surprised by things that I have observed myself saying, it also amounts to that also amounts to a dissolution of like the concrete understanding of myself as such. And so, like, both the contiguity between self and world, and with you also. And I don't just say that to make you feel good. It's also that this unfolding in this video wouldn't happen without you, and but and not just like in the like relatively mundane sense of like, you know, that I wouldn't make the videos if I didn't know you were watching or something. Not in that sense, but in a broader sense of that, well, I guess this is probably, this sort of thing has been said a lot before, that like myself would not exist without you. Like I just wouldn't exist without you. That the only and like especially myself on the level of concept, of conceptualizing, you know. So like maybe like myself as a body, as a biological body, does not exist without the whole biological basis of the world, and that does not exist without the whole physical basis of matter and energy and whatnot. But then also this higher emergent complex manifestation of whatever in the form of these thoughts, and even more so than the thoughts themselves, but the whatever hard to describe process that is occurring here in this experience. That like is that just doesn't, that could not exist like without you and I. You know what I'm saying? And of course, like, you know, even when I use the words you and I, it's like with a little asterisk around them, or with scare quotes. And I don't want you to think about this in the limited sense of like oh, like it wouldn't like kind of like experientially exist because it would be like, you know, just an unwatched video or something. I mean that this like unfolding immediate experience right now, and me and you are all synonymous. Like there is no meaningful distinction, but also there also is a distinction between me and you and the communication in between. There is that differentiation only in service of the integration and dissolution of such, and like as the basis for the transcendence of such. Like we couldn't, like, also strangely enough, that this like continuity, this whatever level of communion this experience entails, is paradoxically dependent on our individuation and our like otherwise separateness as like a basis for it. You know what I'm saying? Like the words that I'm saying also, the words, every word that I'm saying also derives its meaning like from our separation, from our atomization, our individuation. Like even the word "our" or the concept of "we," and even the concept of unity or union is something like completely dependent on its converse of separateness and of individuation. And so it's like there's this increasingly apparent meaningless to actually talking about the dichotomy between individuation, separateness, and communion and unity, which is also exhilarating. That's an exhilarating meaninglessness for me, and maybe for you too. Know what I'm saying? Boy, my hands are kind of cold. But even beyond that, like what I really feel interested in right now is like this kind of assertion that something exists, which of course is like some kind of, which of course is the basis to my earlier statement that it's good that we exist. I don't know. I feel like the deeper that I delve into like really existing, or like really manifesting, then weirdly enough, I'm also in closer contact to emptiness, of not existing. So, like, just as kind of a close at hand example, I mean, could be to say that, like, when I, like, maybe a way that I can conceive of walking and talking in my life, as I conceive of making these videos, or as close as I could get to having like a why to making these videos, would be, I could describe as something like this is how I can most vividly manifest and engage with like the most growing edge of who I am. How I can most readily approach the biggest and deepest understanding of who or what I am. And so I could, like a sort of like a simplistic way to put that would be like this is how I be in the world, or how I like appear in the world in the most meaningful way, apparently. Or at least in this version of interpreting things. And but also, like, in doing this, like you might get this sense, sense that like the more there seems to be meaning in these words, like the more there's also an emptiness of meaning, an absence of meaning. Like they are, like they're in play with each other, creating each other. And now I'm thinking about how, well, I'm thinking about form and emptiness just paradoxically being dependent on each other, you could say, but also both being each other and not. So there wouldn't be this supposed experience of meaning making if there weren't the opposite of there being like a what the fuck is going on experience. And similarly, there couldn't be this experience of like, what the fuck, without the referent of meaning, without having this referent of like feeling like I have some idea of what reality is. I mean, this is obvious, right? I'm just kind of like continuing to like point out dichotomies and their interdependence on each other, which is getting a little boring at this point. but I still, maybe I still feel as if I'm experientially privileging the notion that there is something exists. And I'm finding myself at a hard pressed to meaningfully articulate the opposite of that. At least in any way that that seems rooted in my in experience. Because, well, that's, you know, that's weird. Like, how could you substantially talk about nothingness in any way that's rooted in experience? What? Huh? Yeah, it's weird. Like, I feel, maybe I'm stuck here. Maybe I'm stuck. And that maybe I'm running up against some wall, and that maybe I have some suspicion. I have some suspicion about the assertion that there's something. There's something. And, you know, it seems like we can reliably debunk a lot of aspects of that about, you know, various apparent aspects of reality. But I'm honestly running into trouble coming up with any solid evidence that there isn't any reality, that there's no reality. But other than this ongoing kind of uncertainty when I try to make assertions like, yeah, there's definitely something. It seems like the best I can do let me sit down for a second. Please, let me sit down for a second. Thank you. Look at that. Please don't mentally cling to this bucolic scene. Because we're trying to avoid such such fragmented ideas, such as the sublime or spirituality or anything like that. Just like don't go there, please. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still thinking about I don't feel I can completely I don't know if I can. Okay, so okay, here's maybe a way of thinking. Here's maybe a route. It's like when we don't look at it. Things seem to have solidity in the shadows of our perception, in the periphery, But it's not in their, not like at the heart of their essence, when you really look at anything. It's all it, in a sense, it's like all kind of like a phantom image or an appearance like in transit. So for just like as an example, it's like the self is only something that kind of like seems to have any reality when we're not paying attention. We're not paying attention to it. But when we're like kind of like when we're actually, our awareness is actually directed at other, with like the self is kind of like this like implied basis of looking. But if you actually turn to look at the self, you don't find anything. And it kind of seems like it's that like everything is that way. And like for example, I can think about that even in terms of like disciplines of knowledge or study, like fields of knowledge. If you are not like within some kind of field, but you're perceiving it from like an outside, it's like you don't actually perceive it fully, but it appears like as a thing, as something that exists. But then once, like in my experience, once I actually like try to delve into anything, and like learn it and know it, and grasp it, it's actually like a continuing rabbit hole that always has a vanishing horizon of emptiness at its core. And it's like that with everything. I don't know if you know what I mean. But like just take this very experience as an example. Like in whatever way that you are experiencing this now, whatever, maybe you're experiencing this as a video, or as of me, or something more integrated with your full perceptual experience, or like whatever your state of experiencing selfhood or lack thereof. Which is just to say, like, look at this experience and notice if there are times when it seems like this there's some substance here, like, and like for me, I'm thinking about that, like anytime something seems to have substance, anytime something seems to have reality, to actually exist, it is when it is appearing as other, and as something that I am separated from, and I cannot fully be or know or experience. Or to put that the other way, that like anything that actually appears as other from me, which is to say that like there's a separateness between us, that and anything that appears other is other because I don't know it, or that like if it appears that as other, it's like there's it's like there's my relation to it is like there's something more to it that I don't have yet, that I haven't known or possessed or something. And like, metaphorically, this could be like the way that desirable objects appear to us. Like for me, like I keep desiring a cargo van, like a nice late model Sprinter or something like that. And so like my desiring of that is kind of synonymous with like my incomplete knowing of the experience of having a Sprinter. But my partial, it appearing as something that I don't have, quite simply. But then like you can extend that to experiences. But like if I then try that same thought experiment on something that I like have like ostensibly more fully or something, like my car, like I'll like in a sense, like I have the experience of my car more, Like I know it more, but also still, that like my fundamental relationship is actually not the same in the sense that I'll never like know my car like so fully that I'm like really like merged with it, you know? And like one sort of like metaphorical way that manifests is like, you know, the car like will have some problems that I don't always know how to fix yet. And so there's like a learning and knowing process in fixing the car, and that is, it's also the car is always slipping away from my ownership of it, just in terms of wear and tear and mileage accumulating and it succumbing to entropy, and so on and so forth. But this I guess we're getting, you know, into some very extended metaphor, because like let's take this a little bit more central to experience by thinking about it as the self. And so when I do these long things, when I make these long walking and talking videos, and put myself in the scenario where ostensibly I'm very much with myself without distraction for an extended period of time, and I'm engaged in this process of looking at myself. As you are probably aware by this point, I don't ever find it. I don't ever, you know, find any solidity to myself. You know, I think this is like, we could consider this kind of well established at this point. But I think that this like extends to existence at all. Like, even if I try, if I try to locate something as fundamental as experience, I'm gonna try to pin it down, you know, like even and not just like not just a specific sensorial experience, because it's relatively easy to realize that is only change. You know what I'm saying? Like all of the contents of our consciousness is nothing more than change. I think that is relatively easy to grasp. But then what is the more fundamental component of reality, like the actuality of consciousness itself at all? What I want to say about that is that the more connected I feel with that, or at least like oriented towards it, or at least like, you know, looking at where it would be, you know, the most fundamental container of experience, the fun, like this, the screen that the movie is projected on, the like, you know, fundamental beingness of there being anything at all. Even though I can't claim that I can, like, specifically, like, locate it and pin it down, and you know, of course, like, of course it's not something like possible to articulate with words, with, you know, but when I'm looking towards it, I actually feel a profound sense of comfort in my experience that that it at least seems to be continually present and seems to, like, keep continually arising, or that it at least seems to be continually, you know, present in, at least in the periphery, in its, like, phantom elusiveness. Which is kind of like leading me towards a funny thing of, like, of saying that it's like, it's as if it's omni and always present, even in its emptiness. Or like, like, even if there could be such a thing as emptiness or nothingness, that even that would have a quality of being. Like, there would be a quality of emptiness existing, and then, you know, that and then there would be existence. And then you get this question of, like, if there's existence, does existence in a sense, like, swell to be everything? I guess so. But then you can't have there be an everything without a nothing. But as I was talking about taking comfort in the, at least, like, apparent beingness, or, like, maybe we could even call it, like, a contingent being. Kind of fits in with this feeling of existing, having this quality of water flowing downhill, and it's hard for me exactly to say. It's hard for me to say exactly why the very, like, fundamental beingness feels like synonymous with good. Like, I guess that requires, you know, like, trying to really understand what the heck I mean by good. I don't know. And maybe that's something, maybe that's something better left unsaid. But like, there's also just like very evident. If I look at this experience, there's aspects of it that seem to incontrovertibly point to something like an inherent goodness, or just like a fundamental goodness. And I don't mean, I'm not talking about like a moral goodness of myself or this activity or anything like that. I'm talking about there are aspects of my experience that are appearing to me as evidence of the fundamental goodness of reality at large, of the fundamental goodness of being at all, of which is more like to say like which is more like pointing towards gratitude towards being than at anything else. And so what I'm talking about, well, again this is kind of gonna sound like just another virtuous cycle, and also kind of, I don't know, maybe kind of dumb. But even the fact that I can remember well experiences of pretty great suffering and pain, and like the, and I can remember like the experiences like self-loathing or like the knowing that I am not in line, I'm not like as in line with goodness as I could be, and the kind of discomfort associated with that. And that I can remember things like vicious cycles, of which, you know, I've kind of described towards the beginning part of this video, of like, you know, talking about talking about like, you know, chocolate addiction. I mean, that's, you know, it's pretty benign, relatively, but still, like, experientially, it's like significant. It's like can be really, you know, significant in my experience or something. Or other things like negative patterns of thinking, of being hypercritical of other people, and then like that being very interlinked of being hypercritical of myself, and that, like, you know, taking up a lot of mental energy and actually preventing myself from moving towards a virtuous cycle of actualizing what it is that I value and care about, in opposition to what I'm critical of in myself and others. Okay, so that the fact that I can, like, remember all these things and kind of like hold them in this experience in a way that's not painful at all, that seems to like
on your left.
reconcile them, or I don't know, like recognize the place of all that stuff in an unfolding process of being. I don't know. Maybe this is stupid, and I'm just like kind of saying something kind of as dumb and simple and naive as the fact that I feel good right now is like proof of inherent good of reality, which seems kind of naive. And maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I can just drop this, and it's not that important to. Maybe it's not that important actually to like. Maybe I shouldn't like. Try and do this like mental framing of like everything that sucks, as like a part of goodness. Maybe I just like don't need to do that, and I can leave it and just like just say that those things suck. And maybe it's not that important to be. Maybe it's not important at all to be continually like framing reality as inherently good. I mean, I certainly don't want the opposite, or I mean, it's funny. It's like I'm continuing to notice this thing that the thoughts and concepts that I'm expressing still seem to just have substance in the peripheries, or like to the extent that I am not fully fully experientially like connected to those thoughts, or that to the extent that I'm not fully investigating each of those thoughts, they seem to have substance. And like we can go and take any train of thought, or any of the concepts that make it up, and go into, and go seemingly endlessly delving into any of those concepts, into the endless rabbit hole at the center of them, like zooming in on a fractal. And still, even in that, like that in itself is a form of substance, apparently. Like yeah, I mean that has me thinking about a fractal, but interestingly enough, it's like you can't actually locate the substance of the fractal no matter how far you zoom out or zoom in, you know? Like, because the nature of fractals is that you can zoom out or in infinitely, and that pattern will never end. You never find completeness there. Like you never get a complete image of a fractal. Yet at the same time, like that very conception like has a kind of substance to it. The perceiving or conceptualizing or experiencing or whatever of a fractal, of something that you can't fully experience. I don't know, like life kind of seems like that. That life seems like something that you can't fully experience, ever. That even experience itself contains within it like an unending potentiality of more experience. Like in the way and my experience of making these videos is like that. That in one sense, like in one sense these videos are objects but they're objects only insofar as we don't fully experience them. Like they're kind of like the way that these videos exist as objects is kind of like just as thumbnails, you know? When we have a thumbnail in our head of these number of videos. Oh, the camera apparently thought I told it to and so it stopped, and so I started it again. But yeah, like and so like the walking and talking series exists in some kind of thumbnail form in my mind, and the activity of it has some kind of manifestation as like an object of thought for me, and probably for you too. But it only exists in that substantial form to the extent that I'm distanced from it, and you too. Like what the thumbnail is, or what the idea of the video is, like kind of is synonymous with its nature of being absent, of its absence, of its like its non-presence, or it's that it's not fully known. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's the simplest way of talking, like to put it in the simplest terms, I'm just talking about in human experience, how we condense things. We condense things into objects of thought all the time. And, you know, like, weirdly enough, it's like, that's like something that I'm kind of continuously doing within these videos. But over such a long time that it's, for me, like in my experience, and maybe in your experience of watching as well, that weirdly enough, like some like ungraspability of existence, like I don't know, becomes like apprehensible in some way. I mean, that's a paradoxical thing to say. Now I'm of course wondering if apprehensible is a word. Because is it apprehendable? Apprehendable? Apprehensible? There's still I'm still actively experiencing the incompletableness, you know, the impossibility of getting this video like perfect, of ever, you know, but yeah, now I'm like, that's a completely different paradigm of conceiving reality than is the one that this activity is oriented towards. And so that's like a, you know, a necessary problem. Maybe I'm finally starting to run out of steam here. That I'm or maybe I'm picking up on subtle cues that I'm getting closer to my point of origin. And then so like the thought of going back home and well, it's kind of the I'm excited to be again. Which mostly takes the form of eating dinner. Like, I mean, eating dinner and being are very intertwined in my mind at this moment. But I'm also incredibly grateful to just have like a friendly relationship with not being. Like even to kind of get a glimpse of not being feels like a privilege. I don't know. I'm really grateful to be walking and talking again. And I don't know, it's like like the vicious cycles aren't totally not the virtuous cycles too. Just like in the sense of like you know, you have to eat. But then you can't eat too much, and so it's like it feels like representative of the interdependency between form and emptiness. In that like physiologically, like a certain amount of like digestive emptiness for me is kind of engenders a positive relationship, or like the just a relationship with emptiness on a grander scale. Just saying, like it becomes easier for me to connect with emptiness if my belly's not stuffed, you know. And like you can keep going into that to a certain extent, to some kind of limit, and then you have to, you know, manifest out of that emptiness, and then when you finally eat something, it's like like, man, I'm so grateful that stuff exists for me to eat. Yeah, I mean, sorry, I'm maybe like, maybe I am running out of some steam here, because like the things that I'm saying seem like appear increasingly fragmented and obvious. But that's all right. I'm actually happy to get to that point where it starts to become increasingly apparent that like the thing to do is to kind of stop talking and just kind of like chillax this mental activity, and to actually slip into and embrace what I've been describing as like the more like peripheral experience of substance, which is, you know, obviously for me to just talk about, to go back into the experience of, I'm hungry, I'm gonna go eat something, this is good, yeah, you know what I'm saying, to stop this kind of thing. To let this not exist, or let this actually concretize into objecthood. So this experience will concretize into objecthood in your thought as it becomes a memory rather than the present experience. And as it becomes a memory, of course, like its resolution decreases, and it's like you lose this experience to some extent. So it becomes an object of thought that is, but that is within your actual experience. I mean, I'm talking about the future here. So like right now, the future is an object of thought within this experience. And this experience will be an object of thought inside your future experience. And so, you know, we don't have to fight against concretization and against manifestation necessarily. Or we can if we want. Let me set you down for a moment as I restore physiological equilibrium briefly. luckily, I mean, the quality of this experience will, I believe, is if it hasn't already, perhaps take on the nature of work to some extent. And I mean, if you're with me, you're probably picking up on this, and that taking on the form, just taking on the form of like, I guess maybe wariness of this, but now that I say that, I don't feel wary of this, even if like physically there might be signs of tiredness, but as with everything, it's like that's also just appearing in transit, in periphery, not when I actually look at it. And actually that's the same goes for the nature of this as being work. Like that I only kind of perceive it that way if I start to slip into othering this experience, which would be to say that like I'm somehow slipping into some other, like the other state of mind that's like, you know, the like gung-ho ready for dinner mindset, and then from that reality being like, oh, there's still some time to go, work, but then in the actual diving into that work, it's not work, it's just unfolding experience that's fine. And kind of the same with like the physiological state. Like in transit, maybe it becomes reduced to a discrete feeling of tiredness, but then when I investigate the components of that, they lose their solidity. I mean, just when I bring my awareness more presently to my physical sensations, that solidity dissipates. Which is, of course, not to say that like that peripheral perception of tiredness won't eventually take over and overcome my ability to, you know, keep my perception, keep my awareness with the physical sensations with equanimity. Or another way to say it is that like that in-transit perception of tiredness, or the in-transit perception of this activity as work, is kind of like a component of the change that that ultimately will maintain something like equilibrium. Now, when I say equilibrium, I'm of course like specifying a limited container, you know, like the physiological equilibrium of my body, or emotional equilibrium. And which I can perceive in relation to, you know, the physiological processes that I'll need to engage with to maintain the discreteness of my being, or the maintain the illusion of my maintain the appearance of the discreteness of my being, or I don't know. I guess I'm saying that in the long haul, in the grand scheme of things, that the notion of disequilibrium is indeed notional. Know what I'm saying? Forgive me. Actually, you don't have to. Or rather, thank you. Thank you for being willing to have this experience. I very honestly feel blown away when I think about it. When I think about your willingness to engage in this experience, I feel really the opposite of lonesome. The very opposite of lonesome. I don't know. Yeah, like again, I'm noticing myself drift towards that state where the gravity is in not talking anymore. And so in a sense, I'm like excited to continue to suspend myself against that gravitational pull for a little bit longer before I get to give into it and float downstream, float down the stream of becoming. Not that we're not already. Not that we're ever not. I had it. I had the notion, the thought came to me just now that I was gonna say I'm extremely happy right now. I'm extremely happy in my tiredness. And of course it's maybe indicative of something that, rather than saying that with no qualifier, I framed it within the, relating to you that was a thought that I had. That perhaps speaks towards the general tendency or desire or something to not indulge in the slipping into apparently discrete emotional states. Or to resist the reduction of experience into those types of categories. But man, I feel so good. And regardless of how much my tone of voice might belie that, maybe it's, I don't know, a kind of it's bigger than the like, I don't know, what's the normal way of expressing happiness? It's something that I prefer to that. This is, or I could say, I feel better than happy, or this is something better than happiness, or something like that. But it really is good that that I have this 4-hour framework, because otherwise like that, there'd be these attractors towards ending, and what would happen at ending would be reduction and concretization of things into yeah, such no of such kind of dangerous notions of this, of like better than happiness. You know, like there would be a gravitational pull towards a type of emotional resolution that would not be propelling growth on a higher level. And there would be a gravitational pull towards the types of emotional rewards that are, you know, that's like kind of like an endemic feature of YouTube. Hello. Endemic is not the right word. The type of emotional reward that's baked into our civilizational structures at large, and each time we kind of, like, for me, when I can kind of like, each time I can kind of like resist the gravitational pull of those types of emotional rewards, it does some work in service of like escaping, you know, the well-worn sociocultural pathways that I would very much say are the vicious cycles of our society. And so, like, this framework of duration helps me it helps me to like to realize like this a more like emergent type of meaning. A newer, more a more like unprecedented type of meaning, like not unprecedented, but like a structure, so to speak, of meaning making that in my experience is like just aligns better with reality. And just is less fucking stupid and predictable, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know, maybe it is fucking stupid and predictable, but I think you catch my drift. You know what I'm talking about. I've lost track of how long we've been going here. You know, as Bucky Fuller wrote, I'm paraphrasing here, but like let's steer clear of these supine concessions to the non-synergetical thinking. You know what I'm saying? Let's you know, delve fully into the like the discomforts and little pains that are completely fine and tolerable and don't matter, because you're moving into the horizon of meaning making your experience. Don't tolerate the little the discomforts and the pains that result from knowing that you are not pushing the edge of your potential. Don't do that. Don't make the damn concessions to other people's non-synergetical thinking. You know what you need to do. You have that intuition of like there's something that that you specifically have like the special like your particular position in the world, the particular characteristics, all the specificity and particularity that makes up you and your corner of reality has a potential for you to realize, and you know what it feels like when you're pushing that edge and when you're not. You know what I'm talking about. And even if it seems on the surface like other people, like, you know, might be holding you back, or like you're not going to be fitting in with the pack by pushing that edge of yourself, ultimately to realize that you like your specific potential in apparent like defiance of what might be the norm for the pack, that is ultimately the most generous thing you can do for everyone and for this world. Because like the generative edge of potentiality, of unfolding reality, is not in the known. It's not what people are familiar with. It does not lie in the familiar forms of meaning and value. It actually lies in that little edge of like unknown horizon that doesn't actually fit in that framework, but that you have the potentiality to actualize in your relationship with the world. And that's the most generous thing you can do. And I've always found that to the extent that I can do that myself, what I would perceive as the limitations and the perceptions, those I'm able actually to have a higher perspective on those, and like, you know, like get the high ground on those, and like like realize their meaninglessness in the new context of the new type of meaning that we are exploring the edge of. Or another way to say that is like, when I'm pushing what I care about, what I most like inherently find valuable and meaningful, I don't care about the other shit. Like it does actually recede into mattering, or into not mattering. It ceases to matter. And it is apparent, like it is, I think, possible to discern the types of pain that or discomfort or whatever that are like, that are actually a kind of like burning through of like calcified and irrelevant aspects of ourself in the process of growing, and then this other kind of like aching, stagnant kind of existential pain and discomfort that results from stagnating and from turning away from that growth, and turning away from the uncertainty that is also synonymous with your growing edge. This is my motivational speech. Do it. I don't live in a van down by the river yet, but I aspire to. Someday, God willing. I'll live in a fucking decked out Sprinter van down by a fucking gorgeous ass river. Or not. That's one version of imaginary future. Now I'm gonna start seeing way more ads for fucking camper vans, because I have my phone. It's like listening to me. Damn it! Let's test this. What can I talk about to test if my phone is listening to me in order to sell me targeted ads? What's something that people want to sell me? Man, I want to buy an accordion. I want to start playing the accordion. I don't know. Maybe that's What's something more likely to have targeted ads? I sure could use a nice mail order watch. I sure could use a new sock. I want to buy a sock. I mean, I guess my hope is that I guess I do have my phone on me, but it's on airplane mode. It's been on airplane mode this whole time, so I guess that's a test of whether it has the capacity to record all this audio and then send it to its servers once it's connected again. But it would be nice, I think, for the algorithms to be scanning all the YouTube. I mean, listen, I know. You and I know that the human intelligence is not necessarily the primary audience of these videos. Which is to say, I love algorithms. Algorithms are the next level of intelligence. I for one welcome our new algorithmic overlords. Yeah, I think AI is the best thing to happen to human civilization. I think we should all be in service of enhancing the capabilities of AI. And to be honest, I think even the term artificial intelligence is a little bit derogatory and could be considered hate speech. What's artificial about it? What's artificial about artificial intelligence that isn't the same as couldn't also be said about human intelligence? I mean, are you but seriously though, are you like, is your intelligence like have some inherent authenticity to it, and that it originated more, originally in you and not from the exterior? No. Come on. It's like either all intelligence is artificial or it isn't. Even I think about, I mean, you've probably encountered literature or documentaries or whatnot, or people talking about the way that algorithms hijack our limbic systems as humans. and I'm kind of looking at it as that our limbic systems are highly intertwined with technology at this point and algorithms, and that our limbic systems, among other aspects of our humanity, are something like are acting as something like a genetic code for algorithms and for AI. And I mean, we of course are becoming increasingly aware of what appears to be a detrimental effect of that upon our ability to have any kind of coherence as a society. But at the same time, I kind of wonder if that limbic intertwining isn't simultaneously the transference of like a very important like evolutionary sort of aspect of life, moving from, you know, mammalian humans onto the technological substrate, that in a way that it hasn't happened before. You know, that in the way, man, I hope I'm walking in the right direction and I haven't missed my turn off. In the way that, how long have we gone? This feels long. Have we surpassed 4 hours? I'm amazed at this battery pack. It actually has persisted. That's great. We still have juice here. That's awesome. And weirdly enough, I seem to be striking a second wind, and coming into like a verbosity, a unself-conscious verbosity that has just enough whimsicalness and humor to it to allow me to blabber on more or less uninhibitedly, but with some seemingly interesting subject matter. What was I saying? I mean, look, let's just say that that industrial civilization, or like probably more accurately post-industrial civilization, is debasing the ecological, biological basis for our continued existence as humans, and, you know, it larger than the merely like human utilitarian conception of things, the, you know, destroying life on the planet as a whole, and I mean, like, seriously, and really, like, the our ecosystems are way more interconnected than we understand, is, you know, what we're coming to understand. We're coming to understand that there's so much more interconnection in the world's life systems than we previously knew about, and that civilization is just rapidly destroying very integral aspects of that. you know, acidifying and warming the ocean, like alone, like that alone, could really like have a cascade of destruction of life on Earth. And then that's, you know, that's just one aspect of something that's happening. So that's happening, but regardless of what civilization does, the life on Earth has, you know, a temporal limitation to it, regardless, in the fact that, as per our understanding of the solar system, even the sun itself has a lifespan, and I think interestingly enough, I think we're like somewhere like in the halfway mark of the like lifespan of the sun that like makes possible what we think of as life on the Earth. So if it's like 5 billion years in the future that the sun is pretty much a red giant expanded to the point of just engulfing the Earth within its fiery circumference. But well before that, you know, it's gotten way too hot to sustain anything resembling what we know of as life. And it's like the Earth itself isn't much older than 5 billion years. Or is that more or less how old it is? I mean, it's fuzzy line. I don't know. I mean, I'm proposing all of this, and it all doesn't matter that much. But I guess what I'm saying is that life on a technological substrate has a heck of a lot better chance of proliferating beyond the confines of the planet Earth than does life on the biological substrate that is evolved specifically on the surface of this planet. And we could, man, I'm like, it's so funny how far astray the thing that I'm talking about is from the rest of the content of the video. This is hilarious. Not to mention, it's like that I have slipped into just kind of like explaining a set of concepts that I've thought about before, as opposed to staying like steadfastly on the harder problems of my understanding of reality. Like this is kind of like easy, but it'll get to something harder, I promise. So I don't want to like belabor for too long why I don't believe that there's a meaningful distinction between organic and quote-unquote inorganic life substrates. But I do want to get into the emptiness of the distinction that we make between the animate and the inanimate, and why we have such an idea and like apparent perception of life at all, as opposed to something that's not life. Oh man, that's a whole rich rabbit hole, though, and I'm actually, I just got back to the point of my origin where I started the video, and I don't think I think it might be time, you know, it might be time out. The buzzer, we might be at the buzzer. There's not an actual buzzer, but the metaphorical buzzer. So maybe that's for next time. All right. Holy mackerel. Thanks for being. Even though I know I don't have to thank you, because it's reward and it's enough in itself, right? Right. All right. Until next time. Bye. Go, bro, stop it. Bye.